Good evening. This is going to be an interesting talk for most of you because this is a subject that I know we've all heard about somewhere along the line. We all heard about alchemy, and we all know the mystic part of alchemy of how we always thought that they were going to transmute metals into gold. And we've looked at wizards and all this other stuff throughout the course of history. And so we have it painted in our minds this wonderful picture of this great ancient time when people were able to manipulate all these things. And yes, to some extent, there was some transmutation of metals. And you'll go through this, you'll see some of the processes that they had produced and found out that they never really made gold, but they made a finish on some of the metals that looked like gold. But in the process, as they were doing this, it really became the prototype of modern chemistry, which, believe it or not, what they did find was incredible to get kick-started our modern chemistry of today. So it was really important. What we have here, as you see right here, the magnum opus. And the secret of Freemasonry starts with that. And what is the magnum opus? That is considered the great work. Now, if we look over here, we can see some of the great work. If we want to talk about the transmutation of metals. And I took this picture on purpose because as we go through the lecture, you're going to see some interesting things that will relate to this picture. First, we have him with a bellows because he's stoking a fire. And everything in alchemy has to do with fire. Fire is what transmutes and starts the process. But also here, he has a still. And a lot of times after something was put into fire, it was distilled for purity. At the same time, when you look through the picture, we have a guy who's kind of peeking there, wanting to find the secrets of what they're doing. The man in the back is holding up a glass, which would be indicative of what they call spagyriac, which was one of the parts of alchemy. Besides the transmutation of metals, they also did tinctures, but they called them spagyriacs because what they did is they didn't use another element in it, as tinctures always have alcohol or water or some other base added to the plant material. They didn't. So their elixirs were completely pure. And then we have a little grindstone here, which of course would be in any good lab. You have a big hearth here. You could almost look like you'd be a blacksmith. But the interesting here, he's got his books. He's got all that. But the nice part here is what I look at. It looks like those are the experiments that didn't work, doesn't it? Kind of tossed to the side. Trial and error. We tried and tried and tried and put it. So that would what we would believe and what we would think about in that whole mystic idea of alchemy and being in the lab and stuff. But really what we're looking for in alchemy is called the oculum lapidum. And what that really means in Latin is really hidden stone. So what is the hidden stone? And if anybody reads a lot on alchemy, you'll always talk about the philosopher's stone, the hidden stone. And it doesn't make any sense. Well, tonight, by the time you're done, that's going to make a lot of sense. If I do my job right. Let's start off with some famous alchemists, because the reason I'm doing this is starting at this base. It's going to give us an idea of the length of time alchemy has been around. Now, some of you were there for the talk on Thoth. And here he is right up here, Thoth and Hermes, right there. And as you notice, all this is Hermetic. Always goes back to Thoth and Hermes. We have Melchizedek from the book of Genesis. Now, Melchizedek, think of that. He was from the Old Testament. He was the lineage of Jesus. Jesus was ordained through that, the Catholic Church, through Melchizedek and Abraham. Now we have Aristotle and Plato, but notice I have pseudo next to it. The reason why, there were a couple of people that did write as Plato and Aristotle, but they weren't Aristotle and Plato. So they're known as pseudo. No one knows their real names, but there was a difference on what they had written. We come here, look at this, 11th century, Roger Bacon, Albertus Maximus. Now here's another priest and a bishop, a pope. How's that? Pope, 13th century, Paracelsus. Now here's a very big name in alchemy is right there. Basilius Valentinus, or known as Basil Valentine. He was a very important character. Sir Isaac Newton. We all know Sir Isaac Newton. He even did one of the translations of part of an emerald tablet. Believe it or not, in alchemy, very big in that. Another one is Cagliostro. I put Cagliostro in there because he was kind of an odd individual. He was a Freemason, and he was an alchemist. And it was interesting the time that he went that I'm actually trying on one of the other lectures to put together how he was connected with the pirates of Madagascar and the Knights Templar. Because he was a Knights Templar also. But that's a different one. And look at this. In our century here, one of the most famous psychiatrists around, Carl Jung. And Jung was always the one with Freud. They were at opposites on many a thing between them two. He was very much into the esoteric. And even back in the 60s and 70s when I was a young fellow and reading a lot of their stuff, it was amazing how keen he was on human behavior through the esoteric. Very intelligent man. So let's look at some basic facts of alchemy. If we look at the name of alchemy, it really started off, and believe it or not, it was an Arabian term, alchemist. And alchemist, when you take the words in Muslim, it's actually al is from and kemet, the black land. And the reason why it was the black land, because the fertile soil of the Nile, when it overflowed, was black. And they believe that because of that, from the black land, is where alchemy got some of the reputation of being black magic. Interesting connection. But it all originated from the Egyptian god Thoth, who was the author of science, religion, mathematics, geometry, astronomy, philosophy, medicine, magic, the establishment of the heavens, the bodies, and the cycles of the heavens. In other words, he was attributed in the Egyptian dynasties as being basically the ruler of all physical matter, including the heavens. But in this next one, you'll see that he was in charge of physical matter, but he also had Mat, and she was his opposite. She was the spiritual. Now, I want to bring this to your attention first, because we're going to be going through this, the word opposites. In alchemy, you're going to be seeing a lot of that. That is one of the great keys when we talk about opposites. We'll have polarities and stuff like that. Now here, we trace it through here, and we want to find the lineage of alchemy. It's interesting how it started, and we want to know how it got to the point where it is today. If we look, it started in Egypt some 4,000 years ago, in one of the first dynasties. There were 31 different dynasties of Egypt. And by the time of the 31st dynasty, they were now taken over by Rome. Well, the Rome brought the Greek influence. Then we have Alexandria. When Alexander took over and invaded Alexandria, he built the city there. Well, that's where a lot of the Greek influence from the Hellenistic area came in. And that's where a lot of the books were stored. And then it came over to the Arabs. The Arabs now took over. All these invasions. So as you can see this blend of happening. This alchemy comes up, and all of a sudden now it becomes part of the Roman, part of the Greek culture, Alexandria, part of the Arabian. And a lot of the Arabs were fantastic alchemists. And if you really look it up on the internet, famous alchemists, they have a whole section of the Arabian ones. And they were really fantastic. We come over there, and as it comes to it, this is how we got Thoth and Hermes to come together as Hermes Trismegistus. How that all happened was the Greeks' term for Thoth was Hermes. And when they were putting all this together during the Greek periods, they decided that they needed to blend it there. And that's where we get the word hermetic. We hermetically seal things. Anything that's hermetic is hidden, sealed, put away, kept away in secret. And that's where Hermes came in. Trismegistus really meant 3 times great. But no one could figure out what 3 times great meant. Like 3 times great? Well, gee, I mean, did he do something great 3 times? I don't know. But really what it was, when we get down to it, was he was the one who was able to take the three parts of existence, of spirituality and physical matter, and put them together. He was able to rule all three. So he was 3 times great. That's what we want to do. We want to get to that same point. Now, through the ages, it was under, you can see alchemy went through many different things, which we talked about a few minutes ago. They were under the physical, which was chemical, spagyrics and tinctures, which was all their elixirs, what they tried to make, because everybody has always tried to find that elixir of life. You know, that's been a big thing. That's been around forever. And the philosophical or magical, this is truly what alchemy was about. Never really about the other two. There were a spin-off. There were things that they did, but it wasn't what their foundation was all about. Because if you think about it, if Thoth was the god of all those things, of mathematics, science, and everything you could possibly think about, the heavens, why would he really want to just make elixirs? It really wouldn't make sense. He didn't have to transmute metals, but he did embody the spirituality. Because if you were part of that lecture on Thoth, you would find that what he really dealt with was all the Egyptian gods. He kept the balance, the equilibrium of the sun and of the moon, the planetary orbs, and the balance of all the gods. So you can see where this part, the philosophical magical, makes much more sense. Now, alchemy also became the foundation of all mystic societies, and that includes Freemasonry. And I don't care where you go, the influence is in all of them, and religions. I don't care if it's Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam and the Muslim, all that comes from the same base. And as we go along, you'll see how some of that picks in. I won't go deep into that because that's a whole subject matter to tie that in, but it really does. Now, all alchemic disciplines share the same elements, but for various allegorical interpretations. You see, as you go along, you'll find salt, sulfur, mercury. You'll find the same metals. You'll find the same planets. And all this will be melted together. And it doesn't matter if you were trying to make a chemical, a tincture, or magical. They still use the same elements. But on the philosophical magical end, it was allegoric. It truly was meant to hide things. If you tried to read some of the old books that they had, it made absolutely no sense. It really, you put 2 parts sulfur, 1 part salt, you know, and then you put this into the furnace and you put it into this particular distillation, and they go through this whole thing, and by the time you're done reading it, it makes no sense whatsoever. It was done on purpose. So for 4,000 years, or close to it, alchemy was hidden. The real truth of alchemy was hidden from the average person. And it was hidden for several reasons. If you look back 4,000 years, there wasn't a lot of science around. People were not basically extremely educated. So these people who were educated, who had this knowledge, would always give it out from mouth to ear. Get that, guys? It was handed down from mouth to ear on purpose. It was not written. So only someone who they felt was worthy or intelligent enough to understand this information was given it. And even through the course of history, when all this was hidden, it's almost like they kept several people on the face of this earth with this information to constantly bring it forward. And they always kept it very quiet, because once you reach the higher state, there's no reason for you to have ego. There's no reason for you to go out there and use this magic for anything, because you finally realize that the spirituality that you've now acquired, in order to acquire it, gets rid of the ego, gets rid of your want for material things. It puts everything in perspective. So what do? They end up being quiet and hidden, and they really enjoy helping mankind behind the scenes. And that's what their ultimate goal was. Now, to accomplish the great works, all the disciplines used, as we talked about here, how they all shared the same stuff, the tria prima, which is the 3 primes, sulfur, salt, mercury, and the 4 elements, the 7 metals, the 7 planetary herbs, and harmonics. Now keep in mind salt, mercury, and sulfur, the body, the mind, and the spirit. Gee, the three things we're made out of, isn't it? Body, mind, and spirit. It's almost like the same things that we can talk about God. We talk about a Trinity. What do we talk about? The Spirit of God would be God, the Godhead, the Father. Jesus would have been the body because he became the Word, he became man. And the Holy Spirit would be the soul. We are made up the same way that God said he was going to make us in his image. And it's interesting how even here, the three ones, the body, mind, and spirit, continues forever. Now here we make that final connection, or that first connection, to Tho. Now this is the emerald tablet you hear me talk about, and some people will talk about all the time, the emerald tablets. There are 15 tablets. They're very difficult to read. Matter of fact, one of the brothers just came over to me the other day and said, I'm trying to read those things, and they're garbage. They don't make any sense to me whatsoever. And I said, you got to read them, you got to concentrate on them, and you really got to delve into them. It's almost like meditating on them, trying to extrapolate what the meaning would be. So we're going to take just one part that was translated by Sir Isaac Newton, and let's start with this one. It is true and certain without falsehood that whatever is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to accomplish the one wonderful work. Make sense? Not really. What's the above and what's the below? Well, if we want to really get into this, the above would be your spiritual, be the heavens. The below would be secular, and would be the earth. But how do we get there, and how do we do the great work? That'll be coming up. All things are derived from the one only thing, by the will and the word of the one only thing. Isn't that the same thing of our Genesis? The Big Bang Theory. Nothing existed. God made an emanation. What was an emanation? Harmonic. It was a word that could not be spoken. And all physical matter became to life. There we go. The universe was created out of his mind by a vibration. Gee, here we have it here. That's in our Bible, but that's kind of there too, huh? The father is the sun, the mother is the moon, the wind carries the womb, and nurse is the earth. Now that really confuses everybody. Well, the father's the sun and the mother is the moon, and we always know that we always have this juxtaposition between those two. The moon is always female in all esoteric stuff, and the man is always the sun. And it was the bridging of those two that created life. Without those, we don't have the cycles, we don't have the sun. But the interesting part is the wind carries in its womb. What wind? The wind doesn't have a womb, does it? What that refers to is the solar wind. How did they know about solar wind back then? It's the solar wind from the sun. We all know we have the solar wind that hits us. That solar wind was the seed for some of the life. And the nurse is the earth. Everything that we need to live on is grown and we're nurtured by the earth. Now, it makes a little more sense, right? We're nurtured by the earth. Everything. I mean, every prayer that we give before our blessing, before we eat, is what? Thank you for the bounty from the earth. Thank you for giving us all this. Again, another one of our connections there. But the good part of that is about the earth not only has it to do with that, but the alchemists, when they wanted to transmute metals, truly believed back then that if you had lead in the earth, that by the process of the earth alone, by the earth nursing it, it would become gold. That all metal had that little bit of gold in it, but it just needed to have time for the earth to work on it and make it into gold. So let's get it. If everything has a little bit of gold in it, maybe we can make it happen. Let's take our salt, sulfur, and mercury. Let's do some things with this and try and make gold. They made some grilly things, ferric oxide. They'd made a lot of good stuff out of it, but really didn't make the gold. Its power is perfect when it has been again changed into earth. What do you mean has been changed again into earth? Very confusing. This is going to be part of that. As above, so below. We'll skip that for the moment. Separate the earth from the fire, the subtle from the gross, but carefully with the great judgment and skill. The subtle from the gross. In alchemic terms, the subtle is the heavens. The gross is the physical matter. You need to separate those carefully with judgment and skill. And you'll see there's a process in why they say that. But I can't tell you now. We're not giving all the things away early. It ascends from earth to heaven, descends again, newborn to the earth, taking unto itself thereby the power of the above and below. Here we go again, the above and below. What ascends to the heavens from the earth and comes back again? What? Not telling you. Thus the splendor of the whole world will be thine, and all darkness will flee from thee. Well, doesn't that reek of one thing, enlightenment? Right? Thus the splendor of the whole world will be thine, and all darkness will flee from thee. That is enlightenment. And what he's trying to say is, if you could do this, ascend from earth to heaven, and then back again, newborn to the earth, you will now have all darkness dispelled, and you will be enlightened. This is the strongest of all powers, the force of all forces, for it overcometh all subtle things and can penetrate all that is solid. What's the one thing that can penetrate everything? Light. No, light can get blocked out. But it's close, because light is part of this in a way, which we'll see a little bit later. It's harmonics, it's vibration. Vibrations can pass through everything. Why? Because everything vibrates. Every molecule, every atom vibrates. Everything is in motion at all times. It's never steadfast. It always moves. So keep vibration in your mind, because vibration is probably one of the most important things here. I'm giving you another key. I shouldn't do this. And thus the world was created, and the rare combinations of wonders of the many kinds are wrought. Hence I am called Hermes Trismegistus, having mastered the three parts of the wisdom of the whole world. What I have to say about the masterpiece of alchemic art, the solar work, is now ended. Notice what I said before about the wind? The solar work, the work of the sun, the creation, is now ended. So if you read that earlier, would that make any sense? It really doesn't. But with a little explanation, it's amazing how it can make sense. Now we're going to get to the confusing part. Okay? I promise you to confuse you. Here we go. Centuries ago, a student asked his master, Basilius Valentinus, which I spoke on the first page there about a very important alchemist, what is the secret of alchemy? And the master replied, in vitriol is the answer. Observe. Here it is. That's the key of the emerald tablets and the key of all alchemy. Sits right there in that emblem. Can you make any sense of it? Visita interiorum terra rectifante infinite alcotum lapidum. And what that says is, visit the interior of the earth, and rectifying, discover the hidden stone. Now what the heck is this about? The center of the earth, we're going to visit the interior of the earth, and rectifying, discover the hidden stone. What hidden stone? What is the stone? What is the earth? Here we go. We'll do a little explanation on this. Whenever you have an emblem with a large circle, as you see here, the outer circle denotes the macrocosm, or the oneness. As we know in symbolism, that the circle, a lot of times, is the wholeness of God, right? It's the ultimate. It's the omnipresence. It's everything. That circle on the outside denotes the entire universe, the macrocosm. The little one inside, as you're going to see here, is the microcosm. So we have a macrocosm and a microcosm. So now we're talking about visiting the interior of something. Well, I'll give you a clue, all right? The interior of the earth is us. We're the earthly creatures. We're the earth. we have to visit ourselves. We have to visit inside ourselves. Gee, how do we do that? Introspect and analyze ourselves, meditation. But we have to visit inside ourselves to find the hidden stone. We'll get to the hidden stone also. But when we look at this, what's important about this is all the alchemic formula that's needed to get to that highest state of consciousness, that oneness with God, with the universe, to have all power, all enlightenment. So we go over here. We have the sun is pouring its essence into the chalice, just uniting their opposites. Notice opposites again. While the chalice is supported by Mercury, the hermaphrodite, uniting the opposites. Now Mercury was always considered hermaphrodite. He was neither male, female, actually he was both male and female. And what we're doing here now, as I said before, the moon is female, the sun is male, and they're both pouring their essence together into this chalice that's on top of Mercury. That is now considered the above. Look at, we have all the planets. We have Mercury and the other 4 planets and the 2 other orbs. That is the heavens. That constitutes the above. Now, what do we have here? We have 2 hands facing into each other. Again, opposites, polarity, pointing in. But one of the interesting things about those hands is it means there's work to be done. There's work to be done. Remember, we just talked about the great work, magnum opus. That's what we're here for. The great work is the achievement of that enlightenment in alchemy. So now we go down here. The center ring denotes that microcosm, which is really us. In understanding this emblem, that's where your focus is supposed to be. If you were meditating on this emblem, you would look at that center circle, and you would focus on that and see what your mind comes up with. So we go below the ring now. Below the center of the ring is the symbol vitriol on the opposite side of the center circle of Mercury. The hidden stone arises out of the unification of these 2. Here we go. Unification of opposites again. An above and a below, unifying to create what we're trying to find here as the hidden stone. This vitriol actually, when then was a little vessel that had an elixir in it. It was a special elixir that they made, and they considered that like the elixir of life. So that's why they considered that the vitriol. That was the power of that. The spheres of heaven and earth to emphasize the polarity above and below in a unification to attain the great work. Again, the above and below in the spheres of the heavens and the earth. And here we go now. The 3 shields are the 3 alchemic principles. The lion is sulfur, the 7-pointed star is salt, the eagle is mercury. And we go back to the body, mind, and the spirit. So what we're looking at here, if you go through all this and you can understand it completely, and you can do what they're talking about, rectify, which we're going to get into what we mean by rectify, what needs to be rectified, and what is the hidden stone? Well, there's 2 stones. There's the stone of the philosopher, and there's the philosopher's stone. We are the stone of the philosopher. In our state as we are now, we would be considered the stone of the philosopher. And if we really think about it, in our own lodges, what do we have sitting in the south? The rough ashlar, the stone, and what becomes the second stone? Right? At the senior warden is now the perfect ashlar. Nice, kind of melts in there a little bit, isn't it? But, because there's 2 stones. The philosopher's stone is once you complete the great work. Here we go with that great work again. So what is the great work? How do we get there? What truly is the great work? In order for us to get to that enlightenment and understand alchemy for what it really is, not for what people thought it was. Yeah, here we go. This is a little more helpful, believe it or not. But before you embark upon understanding these charts, we need to put your mind into a different place. And here's what we're going to put. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, not a human being having a spiritual experience. We are so confused being humans. It's absolutely amazing. When all our religions tell us that we're spiritual beings. God made us. God made us in his image. We came down to earth. We got a body. When we're done with the body, we leave it and we go back up to him again. Why do we think we're human? Why do we think all spirituality is up there? If I ask you where the heavens are, the universe, what are you going to do? We're all going to point up there, right? But yet, we're all in the universe. We are standing right now on a planet in the middle of the universe, in the middle of the Milky Way, in a solar system. Why is the universe up there? You're in it. You're a part of it. Every vibration, everything you feel. That's why they felt that the planets, the sun, the moon, the planets, and everything in the universe affected human life. Because, in a measured way, it does. It truly does. We know when the moon comes around, what happens? The tides. And of course, we always put the lunatics in there that, on those times the full moon, we howl and we do some weird stuff, right? Do the heavenly bodies affect us? Believe it or not, they do. If they affect our planet on a pull of gravity or a movement, it's affecting us. Imperceptible to us, possibly, but it does. So we're going to look at this, and this is really where we starting to get into some of the guts. The 7 Hermetic principles: mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. Now, I want to bring your attention on this page here to a simple thing of the colors. I put these diagrams up here on purpose, because what are those colors? The colors of the rainbow. 7 colors of the rainbow, right? They're also the colors of the Kabbalah, which is the tree of life. Also, the colors of all the chakras in the Buddhism. All melt together. But what's interesting about the colors is we're going to go back to one word again: harmonics. Vibration, light, same thing. All your light has different vibratory grades. So we're back to vibration again. We're back to the point that no matter what we do here, it's the same here and the same here. If you're a Buddhist, you talk about from below to above to below. When they talk about the Kundalini and they talk about the body's energy, what happens? It starts from the lowest one, the root chakra, it goes to the sacral, and it goes all the way up to the crown chakra, and it comes all the way back down. And when your chakras are completely open and it's constantly moving, you're in good health, good spirits, you love life. If there's a blockage in one of them, life isn't right. You're angry, you're upset, you're anxious, you don't feel right, you don't know why. So that's why they say you have to balance out your chakras. Now, on the tree of life, we also have those same vibratory things. And this is extremely important here, because you're going to see in the next one. Notice here, mentalism. All is mind and everything is energy. The universe is mental. We spoke about that just at the beginning, that God created the universe out of thought. Now, we do the same thing. We think. You can sit there with your mind empty. That's fine. But the minute you have a thought, you just created a reality. Are not your dreams a reality? At the moment you're dreaming them, they are a reality. Can we fight the fact that a dream is a reality or not? Just because we don't feel it? It's not perceptible to us in the waking state? Is it truly unreal? Is it truly part of our subconscious? And if it is, our consciousness and subconsciousness happens to be the beginning of thought, as God did with the beginning of thought when he created the universe. So what you can create through astral projection and dream control, you can create as God created. Probably not physical matter, but it's there, and when you're in that realm, some dreams are pretty real. The second one, correspondence. Here we go again. As it is above, so it is below. As it is below, so it is above. Reflecting the congruent qualities. We're talking again spirituality and secular. That above and below. And the rectification of those two, which we'll go to rectification in a little bit. Vibration. Nothing is stationary. Everything vibrates, giving off light or sound. And that is absolutely true. Our bodies are nothing more, and all this table is nothing more than a bunch of atoms, and they're all vibrating. And theoretically, any physicist will tell you that if all of a sudden all those atoms jumped the same way, that whole table would lift right up. It'd actually jump. But it won't, because they're vibrating all different ways at all different times. But what makes different matter? Usually it's the vibration of those atoms. The different frequencies and vibrations create the different solids. But they're solid only to the fact that we perceive them as solid. Because if you look at an atom, it's 99% empty. It's an electrical charge. How does that become solid? That's empty. In theory, that is unreal. That is not solid. It's solid to our perception as a human, because in the human realm, that becomes solid. But in reality, that is as void as the universe. Concepts that are hard to grasp because we are being human and how we live our lives and what we've been taught. And what this does is really flips you over on the other side. And it's very confusing and almost unbelievable at times, but by the time you're done, if you want to research it long enough, you'll find it does make sense. Polarity. Again, opposites, huh? We're back to that again. Everything is double, everything has its opposites, thus extremes meet. Polarity. We all talk about the duality in the universe. Light and dark, up and down, hot and cold, hard and soft, left and right, right? And if I could tell you that that doesn't exist, there are no opposites. There's polarity, but not opposites. Now, I know you're really looking at me strange. But I can prove to you there are no opposites. If there were opposites, there'd have to be a dividing line from one to the other. Where do you draw the line from light to dark? You can't. What is it? Light and dark is a measurement of one item. It's one item. It's the saturation or the absence of an item. Hot and cold. Where does hot end and cold begins? All depends if you like cold and hot. Some people get cold at 70 degrees, some people get cold at 80 degrees. Some people get cold at 20 degrees. So where's hot and cold? What is it? It's the measurement of degrees of temperature. Up and down. It's degree of altitude. They are not opposite. They're the same thing. They're just the polarization of the extremes of them, but it's one item. That's one of the biggest and most difficult things to rectify in the alchemic process. We can talk about it, but to be able to understand it and feel it and to know the balance of such things is a very difficult thing. Now we got rhythm. All is the ebb and flow as demonstrated by action, reaction, advance, and recoil. And most of the ebb and flow is, and everything's in rhythm. And if you think about it, light waves, is that a rhythm? Vibration, is that a rhythm? The ebb and flow of the tides? How about ourselves? Every day we have rhythms. I know 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I tank. You know, I'm done. Give me a Snicker bar. I need the energy. Right? We all have those ups and downs, those ebbs and flows, not only in our physical body and how we feel, with our blood sugars and when we eat and when we're tired, but we also have it in our mental attitude. You can go from feeling great one minute to being angry the next minute to coming out of that, and we ebb and flow. Our lives ebb and flow from day to day, week to week, month to month, and year to year. Everything has a rhythm. And the point is utilizing the rhythms. Alchemy teaches you, how do you utilize the rhythms? How do you get the best out of those rhythms? How can you control them? Cause and effect. Now that's a good one. Nothing happens by chance. Everything happens according to the law. Nothing escapes the law. God created it, nothing escapes it. Cause and effect is always there. You do one thing, this is going to happen. Do the other, this is going to happen. Then we say to somebody, well, what about something happening by chance? Well, it can happen by chance. Does that mean that there was no cause? By chance means you felt the effect. But what about the cause? The only thing it means, you didn't recognize the cause. Not that the cause wasn't there. You weren't aware of it. You didn't recognize it. The cause has to be there. Unerring law. Generation is manifested in everything, and everything animate or inanimate is masculine and feminine. This gender, I'm going to have to put it to you, has nothing to do with sex. That's the first thing people think about, male and female. It has to do with creation, not sex. Everything has the same. And if you go through the whole universe, as we talk about, we name things male and female. But all their attributes, we all have a male and female part of us. Everything does. Everything has its opposite part. Why? Because there are no opposites. We just said that, right? There's polarities, but no opposites. So we're all male and female, to some extent. Some a little more than others. And yes?
Even when you were talking about polarity,
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, gender is even a polarity. Like all humans, start life genetically female, then you get a hormone bath that, you either masculinize or feminize. So,
Mm-hmm.
we think of that as polar opposites, but even that, if you look, that's a full spectrum. So.
Yeah. And it's interesting how we start as female, huh?
Yeah.
Then go to male. Yeah, God made the man, and then he took my rib away and he made my wife, That's why she's so cute, But anyways, you're right. We all start off at that same base. And think about when the fertilization happens at that moment, there is no sex. Sex comes after what? A cause and effect. What was the cause? The hormones. What was the effect? The change of the sex into one instead of the two. But we do have the double elements. Now here we go with the alchemic symbols we talked about before. All these are used by everything, whether you're doing this part of it, whether you're doing elixirs, whether you're doing metals, it's all the same. They use this as a way of hiding all of this. That's what it was. They hid it just simply behind the wording. That's all. But they knew the influences of the heavens on us. When you really think about it, they didn't have television. They didn't have everything. Can you imagine after supper, if you were lucky to have supper, you would sit outside, probably by a fire. What did you have to look at?
The fire.
Yes, the fire and the heavens. The two things. The fire created for all of us, from cavemen or cave dwellers, as we call them now, not cavemen anymore. Politically correct is cave dwellers, right? We're cave dwellers, right? No gender, we're cave dwellers, right? No, but the point is, fire was an important thing to us. It was heat, it was light, it was everything, and so wasn't the sun. But we were afraid because every night the sun died, and every morning the sun was born again. And you will find that in alchemy in some of the old texts, in some of the old ancient societies, how they really thought the sun died every day. Because don't forget, the world was flat. It wasn't round. It died. It got buried into the ground. Next day, it rose again. Uh-oh. Gee, we went below to above, from above to below. Didn't Jesus do that? He died, was buried. He came from above, went below, and where did he go? Above. Small things to think about, huh? I'm not here to tell you anything. I'm just here to make you think. Okay? So